Good afternoon, viewers. I am delighted to have Kirby Sommers back with us at very short notice, so huge thank you to her for coming on. And it's like a question of over 3 million Epstein files released. Where do we start? Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Bannon, and on and on and on and on it goes. People who have portrayed themselves as heroes, people who have portrayed themselves as charity workers, saviors of the universe. We're going to fly around the world, and people like Bill Gates, charitable foundations, Bill Clinton's. The veil has been stripped away from them, folks. All the garbage they've done, all the tricks they've pulled to try and stop us getting from here. Trump getting in and saying nothing to see here, move on. Shutting down Congress. The binders, the ridiculous stunt with the binders, as if that would make us go away. Well, no, we've not gone away. We have persisted. We are here, and we want to get to the bottom of this. And getting to the bottom of this includes Kirby, because she's written a oeuvre of books about Jeffrey. And all the links for Kirby are in the description box, including Kirby's channel. Kirby, I mean, I'm not easily shocked, but going through this, there were some surprises that got me. Regarding yourself, I mean, did you find any of this shocking?
Well, first, thank you, Shaun, for inviting me back on. Yeah, I was kind of stunned. I mean, I'd literally, of course, have seen some of the heinous information. However, it wasn't necessarily pertaining to the so-called Epstein case. It was pertaining, let's say, to previous incarnations of this, the Franklin scandal, so the unaliving of children and babies, and the, let's say, ingestion of these things. And so I was, frankly, somewhat taken aback. But, they dropped another 3,000 documents, which makes it a total, according to the Department of Justice, 3.5 million documents. Clearly, none of us have the ability to read through all of that. And in addition to that, thousands of, close to 2,000 of videos and thousands of images. However, one thing stood out, and that's we've always been asking, well, who told Alex Acosta to back off, right? We've always been kind of curious, but included in these documents, there is something about Alan Dershowitz. And the document, I'd like, if you don't mind, I'm going to read you a portion of it. I don't have images to share, but everyone can access these. You just have to look for them. You can find them yourself. So the document begins, Jeffrey Epstein was represented by Dershowitz. CHS remembered Dershowitz tell Alex Acosta, U.S. Attorney of Southern District of Florida at the time, that Epstein belonged to both U.S. and Allied intelligence services. CHS shared phone calls between Dershowitz and Epstein, during which she took notes. After these calls, Mossad would then call Dershowitz to debrief. I'm going to continue just a little bit more because it includes Ehud Barak and the fact that he was Epstein's handler. Epstein was close to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and reigned as a spy under him. Barak believed Netanyahu was a criminal. Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United Arab Emirates are allied against Qatar, Turkey, Iran, and Syria. One of CHS's, and then redacted, who presumably worked redacted, asked CHS a lot of questions about Epstein. CHS became convinced that Epstein was a co-opted Mossad agent. And then they pretty much used the same language about Alan Dershowitz, saying that he had become an agent at some point in his earlier life. Had you heard about this?
Kirby, we have been racking our minds for years trying to get to the bottom of who told Acosta that Epstein was intelligent and it was above his pay grade. So this is an absolute new revelation to me, and I'm hearing it for the first time from you, so I thank you for this knowledge.
Yeah, I was just stunned when I saw that. I was like, I have to share this with you and your audience because you're staying on top of this more than I think anybody else. Mainstream media didn't get even an inkling of what was happening because, as we know, they dropped the documents, Shaun, like Friday, just before 5 o'clock, when no one is really online and, only a couple of channels were beginning to talk about it. And then, like, nothing was online, nothing. However, by Saturday, I think by Saturday, mainstream started to get their foot in the door. But what I object regarding how kind of mainstream is saying this, well, nobody, these are just allegations. Clearly, we all know we're all pretty bright. We know these are allegations. Nothing was proven in court. Epstein was unalived. Uh, his associate Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail. Brunel, who is photographed, I saw many photographs of Brunel and Jean Marie. So a lot of the elite stuff. I saw a lot of photographs there. These people have been made to disappear from the scene. It does not surprise me because George H.W. Bush, who was connected to the Franklin child abuse case that is called a hoax, makes an appearance, as does Jay-Z, as does Bill Barr, as attending some of these things. However, Donald Trump, aside from Prince Andrew, who's no longer a prince, and we can just call him Andy, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, out of the two, Trump broke his silence. Now, he basically said, well, I didn't see myself in it, but I was told by very important people that it absolves me. It's the opposite of what people were hoping. And then, but so like it's the gaslighting because he's mentioned over 3,000 times. You're mentioned over 3,000 times, but hey, it absolves me. And that's kind of what we're seeing time and time again, like, oh, so-and-so stepped down, so-and-so stepped down, so-and-so stepped down, so-and-so regrets their association with this pedo, but and some new names came to the surface, but a lot of the old names that people were like, what's going on with so-and-so? Like you gave a whole list and we'll go over these names and what's in the documents. What about these people? I mean, so for example, Musk begging to go to Epstein's Island for the wildest party. And before that, and that's not the only email, there are others. And have we heard about Musk? Has Musk said anything? No. I mean, what did you think when you saw the Musk?
All right, you've raised some great points there. Before Musk, I just want to go back to Melania.
Yeah.
Because, you're talking about them dropping them at the weekend to try and minimize exposure. Well, in the files is a picture of the director of the new documentary on US First Lady, Melania, with what looks like an underage or a very young woman, and Jeffrey Epstein.
Brett Ratner.
Have you seen this one? Yeah,
Brett Ratner's a known guy. He's a close friend of Harvey Weinstein. He's a friend. Oh, he's also very connected. Yeah, that's Brett Ratner right there. He's also connected to Harry's wife, Meghan Markle. Very friendly with her. Very friendly with other people in that circle. He is alleged to not be a very, let's say, upstanding guy. There are allegations against him. He had a movie studio production company with another man that was put into Donald Trump's first administration, Steven Mnuchin. So these guys, they're all, part of the same team. So it didn't surprise me to see Brett Ratner there. However, Trump is insisting that he's going to sue Michael Wolff, which is also he's being sued by Melania Trump for him suggesting, oh, God forbid that I had anything to do with Epstein. Well, I mean, so he says he's going to sue Michael Wolff, and because he thinks that these people were conspiring to harm him politically. However, there was additional information that's really damning that we've heard about before. However, there's more details. Apparently, if you recall, there was something called the Calendar Girl Party with J.E. and Donald Trump, where I forget the guy's name, but this can be found. This is in mainstream from many years ago, where this man was instructed to bring and invite a lot of young girls, meaning minors, to a party. I think there was 27 minors, to a party where only Trump and Epstein would be the only men there. And the man had reservations. Well, suddenly, in this document drop, it says that, yes, they had these parties at Mar-a-Lago called, and I'm reading from the document right now, called Calendar Girls. J.E. would bring the children, and Trump would auction them off. In attendance were, of course, Epstein, Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Elon Musk, Eric Trump, Alan Dershowitz, Bob Shapiro, and Ghislaine Maxwell. And that while auctioning, and we've heard about these things before, we just never heard them as connected to the so-called Epstein ring, where children are auctioned off. So this was very startling for me to read, and I've got more to share with you, but what do you think about this so far?
So I've read the email then where Musk is just slobbering all over Epstein, just gagging to come to the PDF file island, not to rest and kick back, but on when it's at its wildest. Now, obviously, in these communications, these guys know it's an electronic communication. There's going to be a record of it, so they're going to weigh their words. But my interpretation is that Musk, if he wants to go to this notorious island after Jeffrey has been convicted and everyone knows what he's about, to me, it's telling me that he's been compromised. And Musk, in a case of thou doth protesteth too much, has been tweeting all night, as Gates has been responding feverishly. And you see that it's really under their skin that these people have been outed because they've spent so much money over the decades. Gates, savior of the world with the vaccines and the GMO foods and all this stuff, and the Gates Foundation. Musk, savior of free speech, coming in, buying X, etc. All they've done is co-opted what people have been concerned about over the years to boost their own images. But when you look behind the scenes, I mean, yeah, people can make allegations all day long and they have to be investigated. But when you're looking at email communications between people, you're getting an insight as to what's really going on, folks. And this is like the Wizard of Oz, curtains got pulled back. We can see how creepy these people are. But, Bill Gates trying to get drugs so his wife doesn't contract the STD he's got from a Russian girl via Epstein.
Yeah.
They're the complete opposite of what they say they are standing for.
100%. I mean, to go back to Gates, he seems like so wild. All of these documents show that he's just completely lied to the public, and I think that his wife, Melanie, what's her name? Melanie.
Melinda.
Yeah. I think that Melinda very likely, men like this, men who become very wealthy, they do cheat. The wives of these men know they cheat. Okay, so it's like a deal. It's like I know you, and in fact we know this, that Melinda in the Bill Gates situation knew that he would go off once a year to spend a week with one of his old lovers. So this is no. So it's not like she did. But I think that the breaking point may have been, in my opinion, having seen that that Gates is badgering Epstein to get him antibiotics to surreptitiously drug his wife while we're all being like kept prisoners in our homes across the country, in the world, the whole world, forget the country, the whole world, because of his COVID situation. And we're supposed, the whole thing is just like you think you have a bad dream, you wake up, and then you're like, oh my God, that wasn't a dream. It's real. So this is it. This is who the elite are. You said it very well. It's been their exterior, their public persona has been ripped off, and we can now see them for the garbage that they are, for the liars that they are. All of them. I mean, is there anyone that's come out smelling good, in your opinion?
No, none of them have come out smelling good. And I don't know if you've got the emails between Richard Branson and Epstein there, but Richard Branson is giving Epstein advice on how to sugarcoat his conviction and saying that he could get Bill Gates to say that Epstein, is just a randy man, a horny man who went with a 16, 17-year-old, blah blah blah. But while you continue talking, I'm gonna find the Branson emails. The
Branson stuff has been less exposed. I've been writing about Branson because it connects to Jeffrey Epstein's psychiatrist, Henry Jarecki. So Dr. Henry Jarecki is a German-trained, he's now about 90, 92 or something like that, years old. He owns an island. A lot of these guys own islands. And one of his, the people, well, two of the people that, and I have this book, Gerald Ford, MK Ultra, it's a 2-volume book. All of that stuff is there about Henry Jarecki. No, I have another one. It's like a lot of my Substack articles do become books, and I'm trying to remember, and if I remember exactly where the Jarecki stuff is. In fact, no, it's now Jarecki.
Mit navn er Michelle Christensen, og sammen med Skagen Food laver jeg MK-måltidskassen, færre kalorier, flere proteiner.
So if you go to my website, kirbysommers.com, you can just get that today, and all of this information is in there. So Branson is a regular visitor to Henry Jarecki's island, where he has schools for poor children, boys. The other person who is a frequent visitor is now King Charles. Okay, so we get back to the royal family being involved in PDF things. Now, the nonprofit that Jarecki created merged with the Boy Scouts Organization of America, which has long had allegations, like the Catholic Church, of being a front for human transportation, and in particular of children. So we have Branson in the island with the children. We have now King Charles. And then that photo, what did you make of that photo of Andrew hovering over a girl on the floor?
Oh my goodness, it's disgusting. Before we get to that though, I have found the Branson email exchange. I just want to read this verbatim because it just shows how manipulative these people are. They're portraying one thing and they're doing another. So this is from Richard Branson to Epstein. Really nice seeing you yesterday, Jeffrey. The boys in water sports can't stop speaking about it. Anytime that you're in the area, would love to see you, as long as you bring your harem. And then point number 1, I think if Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor to him, that you slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old woman and were punished for it, that you've more than learnt your lesson and have done nothing that's against the law since. And yes, as a single man, you seem to have a penchant for women, but there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, something along those lines. And then there's points 2 to 4 pertain to currency trading. And a little later, so Epstein's assistant asked whether an associate Bill Gates, Boris, oh yeah, we're going to do that one later. Yeah, and then Brand, then they responds that sounds like a good plan to get Bill Gates to say that. So they're all working together to hoodwink the public about their deviant behaviors.
Yeah, and if you notice, like as we move through time, they form little cliques. So it'll be these guys against these guys, and then it morphs into something else, but there's always like stuff going back and forth. But in the end, they're all part of the same club, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like the script of Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. It's just so phony and transparent. They get up there, pretend to put each other in headlocks, etc. And then as soon as it's all over, they're high-fiving, hugging, and off to the bar.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to close on the Donald Trump auctioning of children, and I just want to tell the listening public that I am reading from documents released from the Department of Justice. I know I was attacked on X. Other people who have reported this have been attacked on X. We're not making this up out of thin air. We're basically just reading for your information, because, we study this on a daily basis, what's in these files. So allegedly, when he was auctioning off these children, he would touch them, sort of like test them in their private parts. And it's like this stuff is so vulgar. There's just stuff that, like, there were moments I just had to stop.
Me too. Yeah. We're talking about digital penetration and measuring the female parts of these teenagers.
Yes, and in some cases I saw allegations with girls as young as 11. So that we're not talking about even like 16 or 17-year-olds. We're talking about children. And also about boys as well, as we'll get to shortly here. So regarding so Keir Starmer has come out and basically said that, well, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor should be prepared to testify before Congress. So here's the thing, and so of course he's talking about the fact that of that photo showing Andrew crouched over and what they're calling an unidentified woman. I think that I'm going to say a couple of things about that statement. First, I think Keir Starmer is another one who's gaslighting, right? Because no one's going to testify before Congress. No one's going to make Andrew testify. This is not something they're investigating. They're just releasing the documents because we've made so much noise, as we should continue to do, okay? And then they word this, crouched over an unidentified woman. Why not say child? Her frame is small enough that it doesn't look to me, I mean, I'm going to ask you, but to me, it doesn't look like a grown woman. Women are, bigger. Not just bigger, she's very thin, she's small, and he is crouched over her. And the thing about those, and it was more than one photo, the other thing that got me is not just Andrew's barefoot, okay? He's crouching over this woman. Yeah, Epstein can be seen in the background with his feet, as you can see there, that's his dining room table, which is draped with an American flag. There were a lot of American flag symbols that Epstein would wear on his jackets, on his sweaters. So did Ghislaine. She wore the red, white, and blue American flag bikini years ago with a trench coat. So there was a lot of that kind of subtle stuff and not so subtle. But call it a girl, call it a minor. So we see mainstream media in their own way, continuing to protect Andrew, despite that they're talking about him, but they're not saying, well, I mean, she looks like a minor. And really, he's so comfortable, and it appears to be such a commonplace practice that Epstein could just be propped up there with his feet up on the thing. Andrew's And by the way, the jeans, you know that every year the jean industry changes the coloring of the jeans in order so that they can keep selling new jeans. Well, that color of jeans is the exact same color of jeans that he was wearing in those infamous, that photo that came out with him and Epstein walking through Central Park. That's the same. So I'm assuming that this is 2010. That's when those photographs were taken. And that's when he was probably in Epstein's house, where he basically said, oh, he didn't see him. There's other people in the house, right? So that, I don't know. I mean, don't you think that's unusual for him to be so, like, what is he going to do with this child?
Well, people are saying that there's no proof he's doing anything untoward, and I'm looking at him and he's definitely not doing Reiki healing on that girl. You've got to put it in the context of the environment. Virginia made 3 extremely serious allegations against Andrew. The third one, the media doesn't concentrate on the most, is the one at the PDF Island, where they were all in the swimming pool doing these things to the girls and joking that they were the easiest ones to do it to because they didn't speak any English. So we know when Andrew is around Jeffrey, it's all about the conveyor belt of teenage girls. That sure looks like a teenage girl on the floor to me, passed out. His eyes are glazed. There's not caring, loving vibes coming off him right there. He just looks like a demonic deer in the headlights to me.
Doesn't he? I mean, I thought the same thing. It's like, oh my God. In fact, I was almost like, it can't be him. You know, it can't be him. But oh my God, it is him. Now, as far as her not being, let's say, maybe she was drugged. We're beginning to understand that a lot of these girls were surreptitiously drugged in the same manner that apparently, you know, Gates wanted to do to his wife. So why wouldn't they be doing this to the children and to the vulnerable adults, male and female, that they entrapped into their pretty big thing. I shouldn't say little at all anymore. In one of the photos, her hand seems to come up, but again, that would not negate. So I've seen people saying, well, she's not unconscious because her hand is up. That doesn't mean anything. You could just be going in and out and, you know, trying to fight off or whatever. And maybe your hand moves for a minute and then it drops back down, right? So I don't think that doesn't say much, you know, because there's one photo with her arm up. My thing is, I don't think I've gone to a lot of people's homes all over the world. I've never once had an opportunity where I would be in somebody's home, laying down on the floor and having the prince of the, you know, the Queen Elizabeth's youngest son, or her favorite son, I should say, hover over me on the floor. You know, like I've never had that. And I've been to a lot of places. So that he should be doing this is very peculiar and should be looked. I mean, come on. Is he going to say something about this? No, because he's a liar.
He's going to categorically and emphatically deny it, just like Elon Musk has been hyped up overnight, denying things, saying he's never been to the island, etc. It's nonsense. But the thing is, if you're sending an email to someone, even if you've not been to the island, it doesn't exonerate you, because in the email you are expressing your intent. You knew what Epstein was about and you wanted to max out your misbehavior on the PDF island. So there's just no excuses for that. Even if you didn't follow up at that moment, you intended to get up to no good with this convicted PDF. So no mercy as far as I'm concerned.
So the way I look at it is not like, oh, well, they should have known because he was convicted. The way I look at it, and the way I've looked at it for years, is they've all known who Epstein was, just like they knew who the guy before Epstein and the guy who's taken Epstein's place, because there are many of these people. They know who these people are who provide girls or boys. So, you know, this has been, I believe, a public relations statement that each of them bills out. Oh, you know, and then they also add to it that they regret ever their association. However, something else came out about Andrew, which caught me a little bit off guard. And I'm going to read this to you because it involves an unalivement. So I'm going to start reading from the documents again. Back in the 1990s, Ghislaine Maxwell recruited a girl for a modeling career. Instead of modeling, she was sold as a slave for and torture. And I'm just going to read. Prince Andrew was an accessory to her unalivement as he tortured her and me, according to the person who gave the testimony to apparently the FBI, okay, in the documents that were released, and forced her unalivement. So this, having Andrew involved in an alleged unaliving of a victim, was shocking to me, only in the sense that as it pertains to the so-called Epstein ring, which I believe is just an ongoing situation that we've had previous and we have today, I hadn't seen this. It reminded me very much of the allegations that Paul Bonacci, who was a survivor of the Franklin child abuse ring, labeled a hoax, said about Hunter S. Thompson unaliving a child at the Bohemian Grove and then having intimate relations with this unalived child and forcing Bonacci to do the same, and then consuming, right? So all of this kind of like, it's not stuff that I've heard the first time, but it's the first time that I hear it connected to these people. And then the last point I want to make, and I'm not sure if this makes any sense or not, I'm still working my way around it, is that we know that Andrew has a collection of bears on his bed. And according to some of the victims of the Franklin child abuse situation, these hunting parties, and even Stanley Kubrick has used bears as a sort of a symbol to in his films as a way to say that this is about, and we see it in some of his movies, several of Kubrick's movies, as a symbol for the PDF situation, so that, and of the hunting parties and all of that, and the child unalivements. And so it occurred to me, well, it is kind of strange for him to have a bunch of bears on his bed, but could it be a private joke, to himself, that this is what he engaged, this is his normal life when he's with his good friends who are well protected, and he wants to go to bed thinking this is what these people do. What do you think? Is that a little too out there, you think?
No, because they're giving clues all along, from Wexner in the 1980s talking about being demon possessed by a Dybbuk, and we can get into that later on, to this release in the files where Epstein had a bank account named Baal and asked someone at JP Morgan to wire 11,000 over to it. And then if you look at the definition of the cult of Baal, this is an ancient religion where they did animal sacrifice and sometimes child sacrifice. It was ancient Canaanite and Phoenician religion centered on Baal, the deity of storms, rain, and fertility. Worshippers believed Baal controlled agricultural abundance, leading to rituals involving sacrifices, including animals, and, in times of crisis, humans, to secure his favor. Often depicted as a rival to Yahweh in the Hebrew Bible, the cult was characterized by ecstatic rituals and, in some contexts, child sacrifice. So obviously, anyone who's embarking upon that is going to be keeping it top secret. But there's clues all over the place that these guys are practicing esoteric arts, wouldn't you say, Kirby?
Yes. In fact, I include a lot of information in my Leslie Wexner, Merchant of Death Leslie Wexner books, which again are available on my website, kirbysommers.com. So here's the thing about the so-called Dybbuk. Wexner's PR people were the same PR people for CIA. And the person who wrote that article, Emily Baumgold, I believe, she was an insider. And in 1985, when that article came out in the New York Magazine, that was to start pumping up Wexner in the media. However, there is, in fact, another name for the demon, and it's not Debec, and that was sort of a misdirection, like a, look here, not there. And so I exposed what his real name was. And in fact, in the photos that were released during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, photos that were presented to the judge, there is an image of Epstein's main room, the living room, and over the mantle is a very strange photograph. Nobody was ever able to figure out who that person was. It happens to be Wexner. However, the name, I'm not going to mention it right now, that is the name that Ghislaine called him and Epstein called him, and they apparently, allegedly, according to some of the victims I have spoken to, did have so-called sacrifices to, and he has been involved long before he ever met Epstein and even Ghislaine, involved in a lot of these dark rituals long before. I mean, going back to when he was selected. He was selected to be part of this in 1966. Interesting year, right? We have the 6/6, which is the satanic thing. His business went public in 1969, which is rather early. You're only really around for a couple of years and you go public, and that's raising money, kind of like, you know how it works. You're a Wall Street guy, so you know that it's like, that's just free money, right? But he is part of this satanic world for a very long time, long before this. So that the Debec, I don't even know how to pronounce. There is that, but there's something that's darker, and it is, in fact, included in this photo in the shadows. So you know that some paintings include, like, codes or hidden images. This is not new for us. After everybody looked at King Charles' portrait, and they found, again, if they saw it halfway, if you remember, they could see Baphomet. So Baphomet is a recurring theme. These people do worship the devil. Am I allowed to say that?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, and so we're seeing that this is their world. We're finally looking at documents. Now, here's the thing: the DOJ was supposed to release an additional 3,000 documents. So they released 3,000. We had about 500,000, right? And they're claiming, well, that's it. We're done, and they're done. It's our job, as we have been doing diligently, is to keep this in the news, keep talking about it, because like we see new names. So Robin Leach, who was known, I think, in the 80s or the 90s, would attend these so-called calendar girl parties where Epstein would bring the children and Trump would allegedly auction them off. And apparently Robin Leach is also, like Andrew, being said to have unalived a girl child. So, and the people who attended these parties included the Mexican drug cartel, okay? And, they're there like doing whatever they want to these children that would be, oh, you can buy this girl, you can buy this boy, you can do whatever this has just been insane. Did you hear about this part of it or no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we judge other people by our own moral standards and empathy, but we've got to understand that there are people out there who have got no empathy, and even beyond that, people who actually get off from absorbing the energy of terrified children. and going all the way with that, putting them, stopping them from breathing, let's just say, and doing the essaying and the R-wording as a process of doing this. And that also is incorporated into ritualistic ceremonies. And if they're all doing it together, all compromising each other. I mean, we had Craig Lund on last night, who was in Silicon Valley for over 20 years. And when he entered the profession, he said that they started out, giving him drinks, strippers, parties, and then it just went up and up and up, where the top of the tech, the titans, are testing the up-and-comers to see how compromised they can get them and to see how far they will go. And it's only the ones who go all the way who get the biggest promotions. And he said that it was the sickening things at the rituals at the end of it that made him stop, but he wouldn't say what those rituals were. They were flying people overseas, such as to Costa Rica, but I'm reading between the lines. I think they were unaliving babies and using baby parts and blood in those rituals. Like. Yeah, and then these tech moguls, they've got more power than the president, the Elon Musks, the Bill Gates of the world.
Yes, so, in fact, Bill Gates, sorry for the interruption, but Bill Gates' partner, Paul Allen, was my abuser, Ira Rickless's partner as well. And they do have a lot of power. Also, the Alexander brothers, who are currently under the microscope and their trial is on, they came out in the Epstein documents, as I knew they would. Had you heard of the Alexander brothers before this, or?
No, please expand on that.
Well, the Alexander brothers are really 4 sons who are married into the Arison family. The Arison family were kind of, Meshulam Rickless partnered with Ted Arison, who owned and created Carnival Cruise Lines, who also owned Miami Heat, I think it's baseball, about whatever, basketball, whatever it is. I'm not a sports person. And so that one of the brothers married the daughter of Mickey Arison, who is Ted Arison's son. And 3 of these brothers are now in jail because at one point there were like at least 100 women who stepped forward with allegations that they had drugged them and R-worded them. However, their abuse of women and girls began in high school, and nothing ever happened to these men. And now they're in their 40s, I believe. However, 2 of them became very well known. They're known as the Miami Monsters, in fact. They began with Douglas Elliman. Howard Lorber, who is connected again to the Epstein case, and who long time ago, Ghislaine Maxwell, when she first came to New York, she used to say when she started to hang out with Donald Trump that she was in real estate. However, it was Howard Lorber, the boss of the Alexander brothers, who was also helping Glenn. And when the brothers were arrested about a year ago for a lot of their crimes, which include things that are very extreme, but that were familiar to me because I went through it, Howard Lorber did the same thing that happened when Epstein was arrested. He stepped down from his position, all of that. So that these families, again, it's like generation after generation. And then to go back to the Arisons, in the Jerusalem Post some years ago, it came out that the Mossad had gifted Ted Arison, Bank Hapoalim, which is the largest Israeli bank the largest bank in Israel, sorry. And then when he died, it went to his daughter, Shari Arison. So then I was also able to pick up, and this was before the Black Cube thing with Harvey Weinstein, because Weinstein is also in these documents along with Jay-Z. What happened at the time was that Ben Capo-Aliam had a working relationship with Black Cube, which we know is staffed by former Mossad operatives. And so that, I mean, we just keep seeing the same names crop up, but again, like with new names. So that now these Alexander brothers were said to have been at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, at his, Florida mansion, and partaking. And of course they would be, but until now, their case is not as big, let's say, as the one against Sean Diddy Combs. And what they had to do was bring federal charges against, let's say, transportation versus the R word, although there are still some state charges. So, but we'll see. I mean, all of this is coming out. Are people understanding that it's all of them, right? And that it's connected to intelligence. And that's the problem. It's connected to intelligence. It is embedded into our system. So, for example, there's another man. He just stepped down. The former U.S. ambassador to Mexico, a man by the name of Wayne, is said to have, impregnated an 11-year-old girl. And this just came out. Did you hear about this?
No, please continue.
So, okay. In this email, which is like, it starts with, my task force is not affiliated with the intelligence community. If you want, let's arrange a call. So now they're talking about the fact that this Epstein situation, and that this ambassador to Mexico, and the raping an 11-year-old. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Doing this to an 11-year-old and impregnating her, that this is part of the intelligence community. So then it's said that we've had another, as a reply, dated July 27th, 2019, we've had another serious incident since an American shot the trial judge in our child S transportation case here. So you see that they're like making people unalive, and then he goes on to say, he and I both think this latest incident is tied to the fact we have reached out to your team. Who on your team knows we are talking to you? Anyone assigned from NSA, CIA, or U.S. State Department? Please understand, people's lives here, this is the government, are in jeopardy. We have had 4 armed attacks against us. My partner has shot and unalived 2 and wounded 5 American agents to date. Numerous white American agents following us in vans assigned to U.S. Embassy. And then he goes on to say, the president of Mexico is keenly aware of our case against Marcinko and other U.S. officials. So, I mean, it's just so that this guy, he stepped down. This guy, Wayne, whatever his name is, he apparently was sentenced in Mexico. However, he had stepped down, but in 2017, that put in jail. However, there's just been, if you go into that rabbit hole, you find all kinds of links to intelligence and to the cartels in Mexico and to, very young children. It's just like, so these are like new names, it's not like the names that we're more familiar with, but there's like another email to Jeffrey Epstein. And this is dated June 30th, 2014. The person who sent it, their name is redacted. However, I'm going to read to you this 3-sentence email, which is, to me, shocking. I give you permission to unalive him. He is apparently with redacted. He lied to you and he lied to me. Now, who is giving Epstein permission to unalive someone? I mean, do you think it's his handler, Ehud Barak, or it could be almost anyone?
Well, you've touched on a very important point, and herein lies the problem. The apparatus remains intact, irrespective of who gets exposed, because even though individual crimes have been committed by elites in terms of what they've done with Jeffrey Epstein, crimes like Jeffrey Epstein, the apparatus is just utilizing those actions, the honey trap, to compromise these people. So the law, it can go as far as prosecuting people if the public demand investigations into all this stuff, but it doesn't go any further than that. The apparatus that's orchestrating the honey traps, whoever's giving the orders from above, like you just described, that all keeps going because it controls everything.
It does everything, every aspect of our lives. You know, I think we're too far gone. Although we did get very far. We got documents released. The conspiracies are not a conspiracy. It turned out to be even worse than anybody could have been aware of. However, there's more information I'd like to share, if it's okay.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time. Keep going.
So there's another short email from Epstein saying, so 2 is redacted. Remember when we were told the only names that were going to be redacted were the victim names? Well, no, the names of the people doing heinous things across the board are the ones that are redacted. So it said, I loved the torture video. Epstein is telling this person, where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video. It's like, oh my God. So they're sending videos to each other. You know, very likely, you know, SNUFF films, right? Which is like insane, that this is not really part of mainstream. Now, Jay-Z and Harvey Weinstein, did you hear about that? That they appear to have been in attendance at several of these things that took place in 2006, and that girls were being abducted, sort of like, you know, drugged, removed from Epstein's properties, taken to another property where one of them woke up and she was with Weinstein and allegedly Jay-Z. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, so what I've got on that is files named Jay-Z as a sick predator who used substances and R-worded multiple women and was literally naked in the room with Harvey Weinstein. He's still walking red carpets, running empires in the music industry. How many more survivors will suffer? Yeah, so there's a document here, an FBI document. Is that the same one that you've got?
Yeah, most likely. So guess what? This document, if you read it, you know who else was there? Allegedly, Bill Barr.
Of course.
Bill Barr.
All goes back to the blueprint in space relations.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bill Barr allegedly was there. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of a man by the name of Bernie Kornfeld.
No.
But Bernie Kornfeld was Hugh Hefner's best friend, and also owned one of the largest mansions not far from Hefner's property, and was in fact someone who helped build the tunnels. Now, if you pull up Bernie Kornfeld, you will find photos of Bernie Kornfeld many years ago. I've only heard a few people talk about Bernie, but this connects to Jay-Z, and I'll get to that in a second. But you will find, let me know if you find it, photos of Bernie Kornfeld with a group of young teenagers around a swimming pool. So he was Epstein-esque long before there was ever a hint of there being these kinds of things. Now, Jay-Z owns an apartment building owned by that man's, let's say, a family, right? The next generation. And so that, again, we're talking about Bernie Kornfeld, very close to Hugh Hefner, and Jay-Z is living in a property owned by that man. I don't know if you can find Bernie Kornfeld sitting around with all his harem of young girls. It should not. I think that there should still be 1 or 2 pictures up.
So I'm spelling it
Cornfeld.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Black and white picture.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. So there's several different ones. I'm just going to put one of these up.
With the young girls, right?
Yeah, there's several of them. Some of them copyrighted, but I found one. Let's see. Here it is with 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
And so he basically had a house wired in the same manner that J.E.'s houses were wired. He had another Ponzi scheme in much the same manner that J.E. had at one time. He was also somebody, in fact, Heidi Fleiss became his girlfriend when she was 17, 18. We all know who Heidi Fleiss is. So usually these are all connected, they overlap, they're all part of the same thing. Kornfeld buried a lot of money into real estate, and his, the generation that came after him, is it Jay-Z? I like to investigate properties, and Jay-Z owns an apartment building that came from Kornfeld's money, who is connected to this ongoing thing.
Well, we've interviewed Jay-Z's estranged son, Raimir, several times, and there's a catch-22 situation whereby Jay-Z refuses to acknowledge Raimir, because if you look at the date of Raimir's birth and his inception, the mother, who is now deceased, was underage. So to acknowledge his own son, he would have to also acknowledge that he was an offender. And he's in the beginning, overtures were made, but now he's just completely gone demonic on Raimir. He's a wonderful guy, and tried to throttle him through the court system. And the lady who's helping Raimir, they've run black ops against them. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it's really sad. However, he had that. They all do, kind of. That he had the allegations that he was involved, with that very pretty 14-year-old who died in a plane crash. I forget her name. It began with an A. That is what these guys do. I mean, the male on male and the having to do something with not of age is part of what keeps these people in line. That's the control that is exerted. So if you want power, if there is a household name like Jay-Z, he's part of the group. And it's like it's time that everybody put aside their hero worship for any celebrity or any politician. Aaliyah, right? Aaliyah in a plane crash and the whole thing. It's just so sad. But she was 14 years old. I mean, he was interested in her long before, his very pretty wife, who's also part of the, of the group that we're studying. I think it's just time that we kind of like turn it off. Look, I'm not saying stop watching movies or stop listening to music, But don't have hero worship. Don't make any of these people that, you know, you will defend, because you don't know them. None of us know these people personally. You know, so that, yeah, I mean, apparently Jay-Z and Harvey Weinstein, there was a photo of them hugging. Very, very, very close. And then that Bill Barr was in attendance. And then what I'd like to add is, before we wrap this up, is that a male survivor of JE publicly claimed that George Bush Sr. R-worded him, and that he witnessed helpless infants being literally torn apart. Now, in this heinous email, okay, with allegations of this are by George H.W. Bush. So it says he refers to him as George Bush 1, and he refers to ritualistic acts.
Guys, 3 days into this game and I have uninstalled all other games in my phone. In-game ads, pay to win, say goodbye to all
Dismemberment of infants and the consumption of their feces. So people online are remembering a 21-year-old model by the name of Gabriela Rico Jimenez, who began screaming, "They ate humans." And she was talking about the elite consuming people, about rituals and sacrifices at a party. There's this video of her speaking, and I think she was from Brazil, speaking her native language, talking, screaming, "Oh my God," and they smell like humans. Like, just what she was saying was insane. However, it wasn't insane, because after that video went viral, nobody knows what happened to Gabriela Rico Jimenez. And if any of you are listening, if you know what happened to Gabriela, can you please let us know? Because from the time that she went public with this, like literally she went bonkers on the street, she ran out, and she just tried to tell the whole world. But at this point, it's time to remember that George H.W. Bush was the personal friend of Larry King, right? So we're back at square one. We're back at square one.
Yeah, and it was Bill Clinton playing ball with the Bush crime family, bringing the kilos of the white in to Mena, Arkansas, that enabled Clinton to parlay that relationship to get the White House.
In fact, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to forget this point. In the document drop, Wexner is the person who took Epstein to Clinton's White House in February for the first term. I don't see that being talked about anywhere. And we have to also remember that Wexner is ostensibly, or was, a Republican, whereas Clinton was not. And then we have to take that further and go back to Southern Air Transport and the so-called way that they explained that, oh, it was Jeffrey Epstein who brought in Southern Air Transport into Ohio, into their, right? However, it's Wexner who takes Epstein to the White House when Clinton takes office, and Clinton was very much part of Iran-Contra and the whole MENA thing. And it's so that when we look at this without the dirt of what mainstream has written in an attempt to erase Wexner out of the picture, is we have to say, well, you know what? Wexner was involved in Iran-Contra long before Epstein. Because now I'm saying, oh, well, yeah, I wrote about that years and years ago, but nobody's talked about Wexner's involvement, or Wexner being the one who introduced, let's say, Epstein to Clinton. I mean, I don't know. I mean, more information will come out as we continue to look through these documents. There's only so much we can pull out within a very short time of them dropping so much on us. But I don't know. What's your take on this at this point?
Well, I would like to go one step further and get your thoughts on Mark Middleton, because Epstein was visiting the Clinton White House, I think it was like about 24 times. The intermediary for many of those visits was Mark Middleton, who ended up just like Vince Foster. And if people are not familiar with the story of Mark Middleton, what did you find out about him, Kirby?
I think he was unalived, just like a lot of people were. Yeah, just like Foster, just like a lot of people. If you knew too much, you were made to disappear. I mean, look at the way he was unalived. That's very peculiar, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to pull up the wiki page 1 second. Mark Middleton, I'll see what the wiki page says.
I mean, it says self-harm, doesn't it?
Yeah, they always give the official version.
Yeah.
It's saying it's May 7th, 2022, found unalived at the ranch, Perryville, Arkansas, 30 miles from his home. His death was ruled unalivement, self-unalivement. Authorities reported he was found swinging from a tree with an extension cord and a shotgun wound to the chest. These circumstances prompted public speculation. His family sought to block the release of photographs and other media related to the death to protect their privacy. In June 2022, a judge sealed photos, videos, and other content in the investigation to protect the privacy of the family. But I mean, the Vince Foster one as well. They said he walked across the park. There was no mud on his shoes. The blood had coagulated in the wrong direction from which he was laying. The guns changed colour, that they're supposed weapons. He was supposedly having an affair with Hillary. He knew loads about Rose Law Firm. So both of those guys, Vince and Mark, knew the inner workings of the Clinton crime family.
Yes, and not only that, but Foster, who looked into Foster's unalivement, none other than Kent Starr, who became Epstein's attorney. So, and I read the Foster documents written by Kent Starr and the people that he worked with, and it's like all they do is they get guys like Bill Barr and Ken Starr, and these are fixers, you know, and it's like, we just have to go back to, you know, Gerald Ford and the JFK Warren Commission report. That's all we get is, you know, the same kind of nonsense they gave to the public in the aftermath of the unalivement of John F. Kennedy. Oh, they spend millions of our tax dollars. They go and they sequester themselves away for a year or two or whatever, and then they come, oh no, you know, we did a comprehensive study and we found that no, it was unalive. He was, he self-harm. I'm sorry, but clearly we've had nothing but lies, deception, gaslighting from the people that we have put in office, which is, you know, that's why I trust no politician. I trust very few people.
They con us every time, folks. They take surveys as to what our major concerns are, pretend they're going to address those concerns, get in power and do the complete opposite. But again, you know, you've pointed out the limitations of how far this can go, because we talked about, you know, Jeffrey's crimes, that, yeah, they can have fall guys, that, you know, they can have Maxwell's, they can unalive the Jean-Luc Brunels, etc. But the apparatus is still ongoing. Yes. And if it gets closer to the apparatus, the threat of legal problems, the apparatus assigns people from other sides of the apparatus to investigate itself.
Yes,
so you got the CIA investigating itself and giving itself a clean bill of health. It's crazy.
And we saw that with the corporations. Leon Black investigated themselves through Deschert, who is like the owner of Deschert is a former CIA guy who married into like the Leon Black Apollo. It married somebody there. So we had the same thing with Leslie Wexner, who, internal review, found nothing. No, because they investigate themselves and they find nothing wrong with themselves. But here's the thing. I find, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, I find that the public, they're less gullible now. They question more. At the very beginning, when I started this, after Epstein's arrest, I found that the public was a little bit more naive. Now, people are like, give us another wag the dog. They're like, everybody seems to be aware. Thank God. I mean, if nothing, we have gotten to a point where they have messed us over so badly that the majority of the public that normally would never pay attention to something like this.
Let's do a quick poll on that. All right,
yeah,
viewers?
Let's do that.
Put a 1 in the chat if you think they are all in on it. Clinton's, Trump, all of them, you name it. Put a 2 in the chat if you think there are some good guys, including Trump. Trump's just playing 5D chess with the Illuminati, and he's going to save the world. Let's see what people put on. Thank you for that super chat. That was from Sans. See lots of 1s coming in. Yeah, I mean, Trump spoke a good game when he first came in and did all those executive orders and addressed people's concerns. But it seems the tide has really turned against him, with him, being so bellicose about the wars now and refusing to release the Epstein files. I think the most insulting thing was when he said it's a Democrat hoax, move on, and then they did that silly thing with the binders, as if we were all just going to swallow that whole and move on. And time again, insult after insult, condescending, So, yeah, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, they're all as crooked as can be, and they were all desperate to cover this up all along, and it is quite remarkable that it's got this far.
Yeah, and it's because of your listening audience primarily, because you're the one channel that's consistent on this from day one, and thanks for doing that. I know it takes a toll. Yesterday you were nonstop. I was able to watch a couple of your podcasts. And I was like, way to go, keep going, as long as we can keep you going. That's what I'm here for. And the listening audience, thank God, they're aware. And just one last thing. So an FBI agent writes in response to the Bush situation. And listen to this, and this is the last thing I'll share, and then I'll just have to jump off. Thanks, I didn't realize Bush R-word him too. Okay, so like even for the FBI guys, oh well, thanks, I didn't realize he R-worded him. That's right. Okay, another day, another R, another former president doing something inappropriate, and not just a former president. He was the head of the CIA, because Ford went ahead and fired Colby because he dared to go in front of the church committee hearing, and then he replaced him with who? George H.W. Bush. So, well, I mean, thank you for having me on, Shaun. Good work for you.
Always a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Links all in the live chat right now and in the description box if you're watching this on replay. And looking forward to seeing what comes up next on your channel, Kirby. Thank you for coming on at short notice, and you have a great rest of your day. I'm going to finish showing the viewers the Epstein dancing video.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Shaun. Have a nice day. Bye, everybody. All
right. Cheers. Take care. All right. We spoke with Ryan Dawson yesterday. We did 2 to 3 hours. We did 8 hours total yesterday. If you missed Epstein victim number 1 last night, Marina, that was a great one. She's not been on the channel before. Look out for that one. And then this video of Jeffrey dancing came out. There's a lot of media apparently. We've not had a chance to go through all the videos yet, but let me get this one up there real fast. Let's see. Right, get StreamYard, put it on the main screen. There we go. And watch this freak show. Here we go. Make it big. I'll keep the music off in case of copyright. But yeah, I mean, what kind of beyond the Rocky Horror Picture Show is can you imagine what the person in red, the thought process is going on? I mean, Marina last night, she was talking about how scared she was of certain things happening and saying certain things or doing certain things and getting caught by him. the fear he had over the girls, getting them to do these things. Maria Farmer told us that Maxwell, was calling her up, threatening, saying she could be found on the side of a road. Bad things could happen. And all of these survivors, they have campaigned for justice for so long. They've campaigned for the voices to be heard. Virginia went to the grave. Yeah, her voice was heard, but the feds never sat down with her and reassured her or anything like that. So, and if she could see today that Trump put Ghislaine in a soft prison and is possibly going to get an early release, she would be absolutely disgusted. She would be tweeting up a storm, calling these enablers out. But I think one of the main things we took away today from Kirby is it's the apparatus. We can have all these headlines about all these celebrities. Will the feds even investigate them? I doubt it, because they are the donors. It's like cutting off your own purse strings. But beyond that, the apparatus is still active. Kids are still getting transported all over the world. And these demonic people are making billions of dollars a year off it. All of the huge industries of the world, oil, drugs, weapons, etc., they control. All right, we've got Professor Hamamoto coming on at 9:15 p.m. UK, which is in exactly 5 hours. We've got Lauren coming on at 11 a.m. UK tomorrow. And I'm going to reach out to Lionel as well. We've also got a chemtrails guy coming on at 7 p.m. UK tomorrow. So I'm going to stretch my back, and I'll be back with Professor Hamamoto tonight. When this video finishes, it will shift you over to it. It's not started yet, but just please give it a like and set the notification, because you know how shadow banned we are with